What's going on, AfterBuzz family? You knocked and we're buzzing you in. It's time for the Ray Donovan After Show, Episode 4, Marisol.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Yep. Jackson 5 nostrils. Woo. They never take the country out me. I got hot sauce in my bag. Actually, I don't. I've got Coca-Cola in my cup. I've got a little Ray Donovan in my system. And welcome to AfterBuzz TV presents Ray Donovan, the After Show. I'm your host, McCall Hall. Got a small slate today. It's a holiday weekend. 4th of July weekend. So we're going to have a short show today, just me here, just covering Ray Donovan, episode 4, Marisol. Now check it out. If you're watching live or if you're watching after the fact, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. What are the kids doing now? All these different apps. Social media across the board, AfterBuzz TV. Make sure you engage with us. Also subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give us 5 stars. Really engage with us because we want to hear from you. Now, before we get into it, I want to make sure I got everything synced up here. I guess you probably should know who I am. This is McCall Hall. If you need to find me on social media, you can find me at McCall Hall across the board. Like I said, we've got a short show this week because our cast is out, but we'll be back next week, full deck. All right, so I got everything queued up. So, Ray Donovan, Ray, he is the fixer and the everything in between. So this episode, really interesting. We've got a few themes. So I want to talk to you guys about the themes that run through this show, and then we're going to kind of go through piece by piece. So one big theme that I noticed during this episode is athletes and homosexuality. It's a big theme. I cover sports for a living, so it was really interesting to see how they dissected this topic, this quote unquote taboo in Ray Donovan this week. The other theme is parenting when you have a criminal background. Like how do you connect with a parent who has a criminal background? And then the other theme and trait that is really interesting in this episode is sexual intercourse while pregnant. Not a lot of people do it. Some people do, some people don't. Some people love it, some people hate it. I didn't know it was that big of a deal, but it seems to be an issue here on Ray Donovan. So let's get into it. The scene opens up with one of the legendary folks from American television, Miss Lisa Bonet, playing Marisol. She is the half-sister of a boxer that Ray and the team train and work with and everything. And come to find out, Hector and this half-sister, we discover, have had a sexual relationship. I'm gonna be real. Okay, I have siblings. I have a half-sibling and I have full siblings. Either way, as long as you've got some of my blood in you, I'm not having sex with you, period. I don't understand how you could get to that point where you want to, this is weird. It's just weird to me. It's just weird. But we find out why this happened. So we find out that Marisol wants to expose Hector. She wants to go on TV. She wants to tell the whole world what's going on with Hector. And she wants to do it the same morning of his $55 million prize fight. That is a huge problem. And the person who can fix it is Ray Donovan. So, basically the show starts out with Ray trying to, just get some details about this whole situation. It's kind of hard for somebody to talk about their past. I think Hector's one of those people where he's been a prize fighter for so long and people know that he has issues, but the only way you can maintain this prize fighter, badass Mama Jahamba persona is to not let people in. And the second as a fighter, a competitor, that somebody is going to be in your life, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. So, there was a conversation that happened between Hector and Ray at Hector's house. And basically, Ray just wanted to know, how did this get started and everything? And Hector tells Ray that he started this relationship with his sister at 13 years old. He started this relationship at 13. Okay, let's just be real. You shouldn't be having a relationship with anybody at 13, let alone your sister. So that's just weird. But he says that he started this relationship with his half sister, who was 25 at the time, because a priest was taking advantage of him sexually. I really felt for Hector at this point. This is why Hector is a fighter. Do you realize how much emotion Hector has in his system because of all this mess? I mean, come on. So we find out that Hector has had this tumultuous childhood. You know, you've got a priest taking advantage of you, and then your sister. But Hector sheds a little bit of light as to why this continued. And Hector said, I didn't want to be gay. Wait, what? Wait. So you're telling me that you continued a relationship with your half-sister because you were trying to, I don't know, like, release the gay out of your system? I mean, I don't think that's how it works, but that gave me a great insight to the mind of a 13-year-old. Like, he really thought like he could get rid of the gay by having sex with his sister. Like, they're both evil. It's both evil, but it tells me that, you know, again, in this world, it's probably more terrifying for a kid to come out and say that he's gay than to say that, you know, he has feelings for somebody who's older. I mean, the world we live in. So let's move on, because we're going to come back to it a little bit. So we see that Marisol is at what I think they're trying to make it out to be ESPN Studios. And, you know, Marisol is ready to just share this whole backstory about, you know, Hector and their relationship. And Marisol is approached in her dressing room by one of Ray's right-hand girls. And basically, she didn't know her, so she lures her out of the room, takes her down the hallway. She's approached by Ray, and she knows, like, I'm caught, you know, but she throws one hell of a right hook, knocks out the girl, takes off for the staircase, but Ray tracks her down. They take her back to Ray's house. You know, it was interesting because you can tell when people do drugs, they always can think about how to get out of a situation. And we see that later during this episode. People who do drugs, their minds are so colorful because of the drugs. So I was really fascinated by her escape routes. What else happened this episode? Oh, child. So Mickey's crazy. Okay, we all know Mickey's crazy. So Mickey got caught up in this whole sex trafficking deal in Las Vegas, and, you know, is now sitting in here with this detective who's trying to prosecute his ass and send him to jail. And, you know, it's really funny seeing Mickey's connection with this detective. Like, he knows she has no use for him. She wants him in jail. She doesn't want to hear anything out of his mouth, but he never stopped trying to pick this detective's brain and basically try to break her down to probably escape. You know, he was trying to figure out, how can I get her to let her guard down so I can get the hell out of here? But girlfriend wasn't playing it. Okay. Like, was not playing it. We also discovered that the detective has a deceased daughter. And I think that, you know, I think Mickey was trying to pry into that a little bit more, but it didn't work. She's hard as nails. So it gets interesting because Ray and his right-hand girl get Marisol, and they get her in the car. And, you know, she was pretty much subdued because I think they tased her. And so she wasn't conscious. So they pull up to the Honda Center, which is in Anaheim, California, if you don't know. And they take her up to a luxury box with Hector, you know, Hector's team, you know, legal team and all that, and sit her down in a room with all these guys who look pretty intimidating. And she handled herself like a boss. Now, she might be a crackhead, but she's a real savvy crackhead. There's levels to this crack. So I just found it, you know, interesting because, and I'm not saying I'm intimidated by anything, but if you took me into a room with that kind of high-powered attorney and legal team, I might be a little spooked. But they gave her the ultimatum. They said, look, you're not going on TV saying anything that's going to destroy his career. You have two choices. Either you go to rehab, or we're going to let Ray take care of you. Now, with this whole rehab joint, they offered her $25,000 a month. 25 G's a month and get clean. That's not a bad deal. But I found it really interesting that Marisol tried to tap into Hector's mind. And you can tell that she's probably been doing this for years with Hector. She's probably been convincing Hector that nobody can love you like I love you. Nobody's going to look out for you like I look out for you. This is why Hector continued this relationship for all these years, because, Marisol has a way with words. Even to the point where she reminded him of the fellatio she gave him recently. But Hector told her to her face, I want you to get out of here. I want you to get into rehab. That's that. He could have broken down, but he didn't. And I think he did that for everybody around him. I truly believe secretly that he still cares deeply about Marisol. And we do find out a little bit later that he has a little bit of apprehension about her just being on her own. She's so hard-headed. Marisol is hard-headed, and it's the drugs. It's the drugs. So everybody leaves out of the room, and the attorney and Marisol are sitting there. And basically, Marisol is just not trying to budge. She's not trying to budge. And I don't know why. I know she wants, this is what I couldn't figure out. The $25K a month, let's do the math. Okay, that's $100,000 every 4 months. Multiply that by 3. It's $300,000 a year. That's not bad. I don't know why she wouldn't take that deal. Like, you might get, I don't know how much money they were offering her to do TV, but I just couldn't understand why she wouldn't take the money. Anywho, so let's move forward. We open up the whole sexual intercourse and pregnancy with Teresa and Brendan. So Teresa and Brendan are having a little bit of issues because Teresa's pregnant and Brendan doesn't want to have sex with her. We find out it's because there's a baby in her and he has this fear of, messing with the baby. We find out that there's no way, even if you have sex with a pregnant woman, you could really hurt the baby. It's just impossible. Let's see what else happens. Marisol and Ray drive back to their house, to Ray's house. Marisol clowns Ray's employee, and then Terry and Abby. So I hadn't seen much from Terry and Abby this episode, but Terry and Abby are walking down the street and Abby's purse gets snatched. And then you see Terry, who, I don't know what Terry was thinking. Like, you can't chase down anybody. Like, what are you trying to do? So Terry tries to chase down this kid, can't do it. And then he gets a second burst of, energy, chases down the kid, gets his hands on him. But it's like young hands versus old hands. It's just two different sets of hands. Terry threw the punch but couldn't land it, and the kid, it was a mess. Long story short, the kid got away with the purse, and that was a really big deal because they had the fight tickets in there. You got to have the fight tickets. So Ray shows up to this detective's office because he needs to get his dad out of jail. Now, I find it very interesting that Ray is gung-ho about getting his dad out because he knows his dad is a piece of work. You know what I mean? Like, at that moment, I don't know what I would do, because if I knew my dad was constantly messing up, I don't know if I would want him out of prison. But on the flip side, if your dad knows that you do dirt too, you really have no choice. So the detective says that there's a criminal that she really wants in exchange for his dad, and so he says he's going to get him. But here's the crazy part. So Ray is approached by a priest during this episode, and he basically has to tell this priest, Romero, I had Marisol abducted, and she's not going to go on TV and expose Hector. And the priest is like, that's a problem. Like, that's sin. You need to confess to me what you did. And then they get into this whole, back and forth about how does this affect Hector? And the priest shared something that was really interesting. The priest was talking about forgiveness, which they say when somebody has been hurt, the greatest thing they can do for themselves and for the person who hurt them is to forgive. So the priest really shed a little bit about forgiveness. And, I don't know if I could forgive a priest for molesting me. And I surely don't know if I could forgive a half sibling, your blood relative, for doing something like that. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy one. But I guess you got to do what you got to do, right? So really funny. So Ray goes to a spa, like a gentleman's spa, and he talks to a guy inside of the sauna. And the guy tells Ray that he doesn't believe the fight's going to happen. Hector's fight's going to happen because this guy thinks that Hector's sister is going to admit and expose Hector for doping. Now, it's crazy because nobody would think about Hector having any kind of gay, backstory. People are thinking dope. People aren't even thinking about Hector being gay. So just think, had Marisol actually really exposed that, what that would have done, because nobody saw it coming. That would have rocked Hector. So let's get back to Brendan and Teresa. So Daryl and the gang start clowning Brendan about Teresa's pregnant essence, right? Like, I guess they say, like, when you're pregnant, you have a glow and you can attract other men with that glow. I don't know. I ain't never been pregnant, so I don't know. But Brendan starts getting really insecure. And I can see why, but, if you're not going to do your part, it happens. So anywho, Brendan confides in Abby about what's going on, and they end up at a sex shop. Yo, that was kind of uncomfortable for me to watch, because this is family going to a sex shop. There's a lot of like incest going on during this episode. You got family, like close friends and family involving in sexual things. It's just odd. Like, it's just odd. I couldn't take it. That's what made me uncomfortable. Not the dildos. It was the duo looking at the dildos that made me, a little off. Anywho, they end up buying a large toy. I'm not familiar with what it is. I don't frequent sex shops, but it looks like it will handle whatever Brendan's not doing. So they take it back to the boxing gym, and Brendan sees, I guess it's Teresa's cousin, and punches him. And anyways, it was a beautiful scene because it brought them together, and it made them understand that Brendan just really cares about Teresa, and he also cares about this baby, and he doesn't want to mess it up. But let's get back to Mickey and Ray and this criminal. So Ray's able to get this criminal for the detective, and he's able to exchange that criminal that we find out has 8 counts of murder, and gets his dad out of basically a jail sentence. So that was great. What else happened this episode? Let's get into the fight. So, drum roll, Marisol comes to her senses, goes on TV, and says that she's been making up all sorts of stories, and that Hector's a good kid, and she's been making up stories, and she's going to rehab. So I was glad that Hector got to see that before his fight, because it just cleared his head. All the years of me playing sports, if you don't have a moment to clear your head and feel at peace before your competition, you're not going to perform well. So, I was really glad that he had a chance to see that before his match. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, a crackhead cannot be trusted. Like, you can't trust crackheads, because a crackhead will always figure out how to get away. Marisol got in Ray's car after this TV interview and escaped out of a moving car. I mean, like, she took a hit of dope and then opened up the car and just hopped out. You got to be so damn high and determined when you do that. Like, it's almost scary. But anywho, she got out of there. Ray couldn't find her, and Ray had to go back and tell Hector about Marisol's, escape. And Hector really freaked out. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier, Hector felt pressured by his team, for one, to make sure that Marisol was kept quiet. And he also felt the pressure from the world to keep quiet. But I think we can tell that Hector has a bit of love for his sister. Even through all the blackmail and extortion, he still loves that woman. That woman probably provided the most love that he ever felt in his life. And secretly, he really does worry about her whereabouts. He even worries about her committing suicide. And if I were Hector, well, isn't that what you want her to do, is commit suicide? So she'll stop talking? But you see, like, he really does care about her. So, anywho, we see the fight happen. We don't know what happens with Marisol. But it was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. But I want to just talk about this whole, athletes in being exposed by family. It made me think of the whole Michael Sam NFL scandal a few years ago, when Michael Sam, a relatively unknown college football player, comes out and says that he's gay. And I was watching this episode and I'm thinking, like, if I were Hector, I would have taken the Michael Sam approach. Michael Sam, the NFL player, said, before anybody can expose me and profit off of that, I'll just go tell the world myself. And actually, it made Michael Sam look like a hero. And I wonder why they didn't take that approach in this episode. It would have been interesting to see Hector just be like, you know what? I was molested as a kid. I had a relationship with this woman. I was trying to fight back, homosexual feelings and things of that nature. I think whatever he made in that fight, he would have made probably 20, 30 million more just off of endorsements. I don't know. I would love to talk to the production team and the writers about that, because I think that Hector's character could have taken an even crazier route during this episode had he just taken ownership of what happened himself and just talked about it. I think it would have been cool. And then we end the episode with a really heartwarming moment. So Abby's purse gets snatched by this punk kid, and they end up getting the purse back because Terry sees a girl carrying this Chloe bag, and she ends up, getting hemmed up, and they say, call the person who gave you this bag. Ends up being a kid. And in that moment, the kid comes, and before they beat him up, they kind of rolled up on him like they wanted to beat him up. Terry said, you threw a great hook, like you threw a great punch. You're in a boxing gym. Take advantage of the moment, and gave him a ticket. And I thought that was really cool, that even though this kid caused a whole bunch of stress for the day, they recognized in that moment that he had talent. And sometimes you don't know when your break, you know what I mean? Like, you could make a huge mistake, and that huge mistake could lead to your big break. I'll be interested to see if that kid pops up anymore in this series. I would love to see that character be a little bit more developed. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. But, great episode. Glad to see Hector, at least have that public persona maintained. I'm glad to see Mickey get back on his feet, if you will. We know Mickey's going to be up to no good in no time. But Mickey shared something that I think we should all remember. Mickey said, I will snitch on a lowlife, but I will never snitch on family. Snitches get stitches, you guys. It's been real. It's been fun. We'll be back next week, episode 5, Ray Donovan. It's been a joy. If you need to find me and want to talk about the episode some more, go on social media and follow me at McCall Hall. When sports and pop culture collide, I am all over it. And make sure you follow us on social media at AfterBuzz TV across the board. And make sure, give us 5 stars and subscribe. And check this out. We'll be back next week. Have a safe 4th of July. Don't do anything crazy. Don't lose any fingers. Be safe. Peace.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.